neuroanatomy part. Today we will do the limbic system. So as you know already, the limbic system consists of the brain, which is concerned with the survival of the human species. We are existing on the earth only because of the limbic system, which is also present in our brain. It has the equally importance as other parts of the functional areas of the cerebrum. So this system help the humans for their behavior, the emotional behavior, their response to their past experiences. So we are living on the earth only because of the past experience and the new experience we gain it, and we have got the capability of saving ourselves from the any danger. So we are always suspicious of the anxiety. So we got the anxiety also. So anxiety is also the factor of the survival. As for example, your papers are coming, so you got the fear and anxiety. So fear and anxiety is necessary for the survival of an individual. If you don't care for the exams, you don't read, and what will happen? You will fail. But you have to pass. This thing happens because of your memory, and for that you got the fear as well as the anxiety also. So this part of the brain is called the limbic system. So that is called the system of fight, fright and flight. If an enemy is coming towards you with a open knife, then what you will do with your past experience? Either you will fight with him, or you will run away from the scene because you want to save yourself. Or in third person, that you will standing still. You are not fighting, you are not running, you are stand still. You are confused, you are perplexed. You don't know how to react to the situation. It means your limbic system is not working, as it happens in the Alzheimer's disease and other diseases related to this. They don't know what is the fear, what is the dangers, what is the death. And the person will come and he will kill you. So this is the system at that abnormal or the situation in the human life is responsible for the safety of the human species. So the word limbic means borderline or border. So this system is present, the border between the telencephalon and the diencephalon, at the border of this. Various parts of the brain, they are concerned with the limbic system. They are present in the border that is between the cerebrum and some subcortical areas. So that's why this word comes, that is called the limbic system. And main functions of the limbic system, they are: first is the emotional behavior. So emotional behavior of a person depends upon the, when we are having some achievement in the life, we got the pleasure. And when there are certain your friends who are not selected in the NEET, they are not qualified, so they are sad. So emotional behavior depends upon your situation, that the player and the soreness. So the function of limbic system is this. Second is for the survival of the human race. How the survival is possible? Eating, food intake, and sex to make the family and generation of the more offsprings, and how the generation to generation we are concerned. So eating is must for the human body, and sex is there for the survival because of the production of progeny or the offspring, so the generation remain continued, and we exist on the earth only because of these two things. So this limbic system is concerned with these two visceral actions. Then this limbic system is also concerned with the regulation and coordination between the recent and the past memory. So we proceed to the different parts of the different functions of the human life with the past experience. Already we got it, and whenever this situation comes into the life, so we just correlate with this, and this correlation will help in the survival also, and how to tackle with the different situations in the life. So these are the concern of this. So this process goes on also concerned with the learning. And retention of the memory. So your NEET examination depend upon this function of the limbic system. You are today here only because of limbic system. Learning. Why NEET is difficult? Because this is the exam concerned with the retention of your memory of how many years? 2 years. All the exams in your life you have given before the NEET were annual. Now this is what you have seen it in the NEET. You have to retain the knowledge for 2 years. And after 2 years of your gathered experience or your knowledge of the 3 subjects, you have to qualify the test. So that's why it is difficult. And whose limbic system is best, they are now sitting in these chairs. In this lecture theatre, you are only because of retention of your knowledge for 2 years. So that is helped by the limbic system. Then it is also concerned with the sexual behavior. So these are the main functions in nutshell what is the limbic system. Now we will go into the anatomical part of the limbic system. So as we have said, it is consists of the 2 parts. The areas present in the cerebrum, they are called the cortical areas, cerebral cortex. And other than the cerebral cortex, other parts of the brain, maybe diencephalon, maybe midbrain or the brain stem. So in order to make them, listing them, the cortical areas, they are the limbic area. So the limbic area includes cingulate gyrus, it consists of septal area. That is entorhinal area. Dentate gyrus. Hippocampus. The fornix. So these are the areas which are present in the different parts of the cerebrum concerned with the limbic system. Others, they are subcortical areas. The subcortical areas means below the cortex. They are the hypothalamus, the thalamus, the midbrain. Then amygdaloid nucleus, stria terminalis, and stria thalami. Then the pineal gland. So a wide variety of the afferent and the efferent connections are there between the cortical and the subcortical area. So this is the anatomy of what is called the limbic system. So we will take one by one these areas. We know when we study the gray matter of the cerebrum in the three-dimensional picture, that is the superolateral, inferior and the medial surfaces. So we have also made the medial surface of cerebrum and different areas. This is the corpus callosum, the rostrum. Rostrum means horizontal part. Rostrum means platform. Then bend in the anatomy is called genu. Genu means bend anywhere. Genu of the internal capsule, genu of the corpus callosum. Then main thickness is called the trunk or the body of the corpus callosum. The posterior free end of the corpus callosum is called splenium. Then forceps major, minor and tapetum are the other parts of the corpus callosum. So whenever a question of the corpus callosum comes, you have to explain under 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and 7 headings. 7 parts are there of corpus callosum. So 7 pages you can fill with the corpus callosum question comes. It's a very important theory question. Just above and parallel to the corpus callosum there is a sulcus which is called callosal sulcus. Just above and parallel to it. Callosal sulcus is the name. And the rostrum part of this corpus callosum ends below. And this is called the lamina terminalis. Lamina terminalis is the name where the white matter goes downward. And when we see where it is going, then we came to know that it is attached below to the optic nerve, and optic nerve crossing to form optic chiasma. and the area of the gray matter here is called the pre-optic area. Pre-optic area. So this you have already done the parts of corpus callosum. You have to make 3 diagrams whenever a question of the corpus callosum. One is this. Then there was a cingulate sulcus starting from the parietal lobe, going above and parallel to the corpus callosum, and it enters into the frontal lobe, and it ends in the orbital part of the frontal lobe. So it's a very long, starting from parietal lobe and ending into the frontal lobe. This sulcus, the name is C, is called cingulate sulcus. Above is the central sulcus, precentral and postcentral, they are already there. Cingulate sulcus. And this part of the gray matter, above and parallel between the callosal and cingulate sulcus, this dotted part is called cingulum, is the gyrus up to the parieto-occipital sulcus. This is the parieto-occipital sulcus. So this is the cingulum, or what is called cingulate gyrus. So this is the one of the limbic area of the cerebrum. So this diagram is very important whenever a question of the limbic system comes, then you have to depict all in labeling it. Now cingulate is the gyrus of the gray matter which is starting from ending in the orbital part. This is called the orbital group of the frontal lobe. Now this is the occipital pole. From here a sulcus start. This is the parieto-occipital sulcus. This is the calcarine sulcus. Both meet here, parieto-occipital and calcarine. And both unite to form a collateral sulcus which runs towards the temporal pole. So this is the temporal pole. This is the frontal pole. This is the occipital pole. This is called the collateral sulcus, which goes from the almost occipital pole to the temporal pole. And below this corpus callosum, this is the sagittal section of the two cerebral hemisphere. From the corpus callosum, we separate the two cerebral hemisphere and we are seeing the medial surface. So below this, there lies the egg-like mass of the gray matter that is called thalamus with interthalamic adhesion. And below the thalamus, this line is called the upper surface, is called the dorsal surface of thalamus. This is called the ventral or the inferior surface. This is the anterior, this is the posterior, which is called pulvinar. We are touching the medial surface of the thalamus, which is exactly egg-like. If you put an egg on the table, it is convex from all the sides, anteriorly, posteriorly, medially, laterally, dorsally, and inferior. And two thalami, they are present in the two cerebral hemisphere. When corpus callosum join the two cerebral hemisphere, if you put the two eggs together and bring them close together, there will be a point where the two eggs are touching each other. They are fused with each other, their medial convex surface. So when we have cut the corpus callosum in the sagittal section, so that connection is also cut, and that connection is called interthalamic adhesion. So this is also from the lateral wall of third ventricle. Whenever we do the third ventricle, we make this diagram also. So this diagram is also concerned with the third ventricle and corpus callosum question plus medial surface. So just where the lower end of the inferior surface of thalamus is there is a line is present. This is called the hypothalamic sulcus. And below this hypothalamic sulcus, here lies the hypothalamus. Below the thalamus is the hypo means below. So this area is called the hypothalamus. So another is the septal area. Which is the septal area? So septal area lies just in front here. So this area is called the septal area, and it is having the nuclei in it, which are called septal nuclei. So this is the septal area. Then comes the entorhinal area. So entorhinal area is formed by the what is called parahippocampus. Parahippocampus. So below the collateral sulcus, so this lobe is the temporal lobe, medial surface. I am touching the medial surface of the temporal lobe. And below the collateral sulcus, whole of this is called parahippocampal area or the gyrus. This is parahippocampal. Then comes the, so it is also called entorhinal area. Then comes the hippocampus and the dentate gyrus. When I go into the depth of this collateral sulcus and I separate the two lips apart from each other, and if I cut the superficial gray matter of the medial surface of the temporal lobe in this area or deep to the collateral sulcus, if I sacrifice this area or cut a superficial slice of the gray matter of the temporal lobe, just below it, what I find, there is a structure which is called hippocampus. This is the hippocampus. What is the hippocampus? You know your geology classes, practical notebook, you know if you have made the diagram of hippocampus. Not hippopotamus, this is hippocampus. What is the other name? Seahorse. What is the specialty of the seahorse? The GK of the medical student just checked today. What is special about the seahorse or hippocampus? Male carries the offsprings till they becomes easy to swim. Good. So this is the hippocampus. The anterior end of the hippocampus is broad, just like you make the hippocampus like this. This is the hippocampus, seahorse. So its anterior part is broad like the hippocampus, and this broad like having the grooves and the clefts here, and it appears like our foot-like, anterior end of the foot-like appearance. So it is called the pes hippocampi. Pes means pair means foot. Foot-like appearance of anterior expanded part of the hippocampus is called pes hippocampi. As we go posteriorly, it becomes narrow. It is tapering. And when we go more posteriorly, what we see that it goes inferior to the splenium. And from the splenium, it becomes narrow, more narrow part. When it becomes narrow, now its name changes, because anatomy is the subject of what I have told first time. How many? 3,500 words. On the first day you have told. Because these words, they are first you will hear in the life. So this narrow part is called gyrus fasciolaris. Gyrus fasciolaris. Then we further trace it, we dissect it out, because anatomy is the subject of dissection. We have to go into the depth of each and everything. So when I trace it, gyrus fasciolaris, what I see, that it goes upward, it rides over the corpus callosum on its superior surface, and here it becomes thin sheet-like. It becomes thin and sheet-like and spread over the whole of the corpus callosum like a sheet when you wear the sheet on your bed. This bed sheet-like flat structure of the hippocampus, now it is part of the corpus callosum, is called indusium graecium. Again name changes. Indusium graecium. So inducium gracium is a sheet-like structure spread over the corpus callosum length. When we further trace it downward, what I see that it ends into the septal area, which is also called paraterminal gyrus, or what is called septal area or the septal nuclei. So gray matter, hippocampus is made up of gray matter, so it ends into the gray matter. That is called the septal area nuclei. So this whole structure is called the hippocampus. Now medial to the hippocampus, there is a tooth-like gray matter because of the presence of grooves in it. And it appears or look like the tooth-like appearance, because of that it is called the dentate gyrus. It lies medial to the hippocampus. When we trace it anteriorly, what we find that it is concerned or it is connected to the uncus. We know the uncus is the part of smell brain, rhinencephalon, because it is present just anterior to the rhinal sulcus on the medial aspect near the temporal pole medially, that we have seen in the medial inferior surface of the cerebrum and the temporal lobe. So it is connected to the rhinal sulcus. It means it is concerned with the rhinencephalon or the smell brain. And posteriorly when we trace it, so it is attached to the medial stria of the olfactory bulb. The first cranial nerve is also connected to the rhinal sulcus and uncus is attached to the medial stria of the olfactory bulb. So this is the dentate gyrus. Posteriorly when we trace it, it is also continuous with the gyrus fasciolaris. So both hippocampus and dentate gyrus, they are the same. So this is what we call the dentate gyrus and the hippocampus. So they are made up of the gray matter. Now the another structure which we have, there is the next is the fornix. Again, fornix is the Greek word. We don't know what is the meaning of the fornix. Now from the dentate gyrus and the hippocampus, the white matter comes out, or axons, because they are made up of the gray matter. So white matter comes out of them from hippocampus and dentate gyrus, and they form a frill-like structure. They are raised above, or they are coming from the superficial surface of the hippocampus and dentate gyrus. So a white matter layer is there. This white matter layer is called the alveus. Alveus, as you boil the milk and after some time there is on the superficial surface there is a crust that is called malai. So malai is also white color, so this is also malai. So malai is the alveus. We don't know what is the meaning of alveus, but you have to remember alveus is a white matter sheet of the axons coming out of the hippocampus and the dentate gyrus. So all of this malai or the alveus medially comes, and they all join together and they are raised a little bit above the surface of them. When they are raised above the surface, now their name changes. Now they are called fimbria. This is called fimbria. So fimbria is a frill-like structure. As you were small, the girls, they wear the skirts. And what is attached to the lower border of the skirts? A transparent design strip of the cotton. That is called frill-like structure. That is called fimbria. Or if you see the fish, so above this there is a fin. So it moves like this. Undulating membrane, that is called undulating membrane-like structure, which is very delicate above, vertical in position. So that is called the fimbria. When we trace this fimbria backward, this is made up of white matter. What we say that it becomes a thick bundle of white fibers. This thick bundle of the white fibers, again we have to name. from fimbria lead to the, what is it called, a bundle of white fiber is called crus. Crus means bundle. And when we further trace this bundle or the crus, what we see that it goes below the corpus callosum, below the corpus or the under surface of corpus callosum. And now same is happening on the right side and the left side. So now they are coming in the middle, and the two crusts now they join together because they are the midline structures, they are the medial most structures. So two crura, they fuse together, and this fusion is called, again we have to name, this fused part of the crura is called body of the fornix. So they are all the parts of the fornix. Whenever a question of the fornix comes, is again a very important question, you have to make this diagram, everything, and you have to follow like this. So this form the two joined together, they form the body of the fornix. When we trace it, and from here some fibers, they are horizontally present, they go from the one crust to the another crust, and this joining forms the what is called hippocampal commissure. This forms the hippocampal commissure from body. Hippocampal commissure. It means two hippocampi of right and left side, they are interconnected. So they are the association fibers. You have long list of enumerated association fibers, seven of them. One was this hippocampal commissure. When we further trace this body of the fornix, what we see that anteriorly they divide into two columns. Again they divide into two bundles. So these two bundles, they are called columns, and these columns then anteriorly they end into a round structure which is called mammillary bodies. Just behind the interventricular foramen of Monro. So they form the two columns, and every column will end into a ball-like structure, part of the midbrain, that is called the mammillary bodies. So mammillary bodies, they are the part of the connective. From mammillary bodies, the fibers, they go to the thalamus, or mammillary body of midbrain is connected to the thalamus. This is called the mammillothalamic tract, or the fibers, mammillothalamic tract. And few fibers from the mammillary body, they are also goes to the tegmentum part of the midbrain, they are called the mammillotegmental tract, or the fiber. So below this is the midbrain part of it. So this whole structure, the gray matter is the starting point of the hippocampus and dendritic gyrus, and these the white fibers, they form the fornix, which end into the gray matter, that is the mammillary body, they are made up of gray matter. So this is how the C-shaped structure is there. Now anteriorly above the column of the fornix and the under surface of the body of the corpus callosum, rostrum and the genu, there is a septum which is called septum pellucidum. This is septum pellucidum. So septum pellucidum is a sheet of gray matter which is holding the columns of the fornix to the under surface of the corpus callosum. If you break it, the columns will fall down. So they are holding them up. So it is a sheet. And the nuclei present in the septum pellucidum, remember pellucidum P for player. Their function is player. When we are emotionally very happy, so we are in the player mood. So it is only because of the nuclei in the septum pellucidum. So that is the function of septum pellucidum, besides the anatomical function. The function is the player mood is concerned for the stimulation of this area. So this is how we could do this. Then between this, so these are the part of the fornix, the fimbria, the crus, the body, and the column and the mammillary body, they are the part of the what is called the fornix. This is the white matter of the cerebrum. This is the white matter of the cerebrum. Now there is a very pencil tip gap is present between the fornix and the thalamus. That fissure is called the choroid fissure. If you see on the medial surface, there is a very narrow space is present between the thalamus, which is egg-like, and encircling it, its dorsal surface, is the column and the body of the fornix. Only your tip of your pencil can admit it, and that is called the choroid fissure. And in this choroid fissure from medial surface, because we know the whole of the cerebrum is covered by the pia mater, so pia mater will go through this choroid fissure and it will again come back through the same fissure. So there will be double fold of the pia mater. So this is how the coronal section will clear you. This is the fornix below the corpus callosum, and this is the thalamus. So they are all having concern with the pia mater. So pia mater will go inside laterally through the choroid fissure, and this pia mater again comes medially and covering the thalamus medial surface. So this is the double fold of the pia mater. Goes inside through the choroid fissure. Then an artery, the anterior choroidal artery, it also goes inside, and it divides into a bunch of capillaries like the glomerulus of your uriniferous tubule. This bunch of capillaries is the site of production of the CSF. This is called choroid fissure. This choroid fissure, and this is called the choroid plexus. So this bunch of capillaries of the anterior choroidal artery in the double fold of the pia mater is called the tila choroidea is the name. Sometimes a question comes, write a short note on tila choroidea. Very important question. So you should know what is the choroid fissure, what is the choroid plexus, what is tila choroidea, what is double fold of pia mater. So as in the glomerulus, the Bowman's capsule is there. What is coming out of the glomerulus? Afferent and efferent arteriole, the pressure gradient is there, and what is coming out? Urinary filtrate, not urine, urinary filtrate. Urine has to form from the DCT, PCT, and that is a long process. Now Bowman's capsule is getting the excretion, that is called glomerular filtrate. Similarly, from this glomerulus of the, which is called here, not glomerulus, choroid plexus, what is coming out? CSF. So like glomerular filtrate, so through this capillaries and pia mater, what is coming out? The CSF. So CSF is the production. So here is the lateral ventricle, and lateral ventricle, whole of the lateral ventricle, all horns internally, they are lined by ependyma, which is a neuroconnective tissue. It forms the BBB, blood-brain barrier. One of the constituent is ependyma, if you remember. So this is the ependyma, the pia mater, and then choroid fissure. So this is how the CSF is produced. The maximum amount is produced in the lateral ventricle. So what is the choroid fissure and choroid plexus? It is also C-shape, because it goes along with the C-shaped fornix from the inferior horn of the lateral ventricle, which is situated in the temporal lobe, and it goes into the floor of the central part of the lateral ventricle. The floor of the central part of lateral ventricle is formed by superior or the dorsal surface of the thalamus. And what is lying over them? Choroid plexus. What else lies there? Thalamostriate vein. So wherever the arteries are there, veins will be there. So vein which is bringing the impure blood from the thalamus, this, and striate cord. What is lying? If I remove this thalamus, what lies lateral to it? Biconvex lens like lentiform nucleus, putamen and globus pallidus. And above this, what is lying? Chordate nucleus above the thalamus, supero-laterally. So veins from that area is also bringing the impure blood from the thalamus. That's why this vein is called thalamostriate. Striate means striate cortex. Striate cortex is formed by putamen and globus pallidus. Why it is called striate? Because it is like the skeletal muscle is called. Why it is called skeletal muscle? Because it has got M band, H band, striations are there. Striated muscle, other name is skeletal muscle, striate. So that is the striate. So when we cut the horizontal section of the lentiform nucleus, what we see, the putamen and globus pallidus, they are interconnected by the white streaks, lines. That's why it is called the striate cortex. So this is how they are present. Above here, the thermostrate vein as well as the choroids. So that you should know how. So this diagram is very important in the lateral ventricle, and so many questions you have to make. So this is a very complex diagram, but who will make it get the maximum marks? It is very difficult to form this diagram. First understand, then make a diagram is very difficult. But if you go systematically, nothing is impossible. So these are the cortical areas we have discussed about the limbic system. A long list of the structures present over here. Now comes these are the non or the subcortical areas. So subcortical areas, they are the hypothalamus. I have already told you there is a sulcus below the thalamus, which is called the hypothalamic sulcus, and below this is the hypothalamus. And you know from the hypothalamus what is hanging? Posterior pituitary neurohypophysis. So the neurohypophysis is lying over here. So this is the pituitary gland is hanging from here. Neurohypophysis, anterior one the adenohypophysis. So it is neurohypophysis because, why it is called neuronal? Because it is concerned with the brain, neurons. So this is hypothalamus. Then the thalamus, you know, the egg-like structure. It has got so many nuclei. Anterior group, you have to remember, this is concerned with the limbic system. As VPL nucleus was for sensory, anterior nucleus is for the limbic system. You have to remember only this much. Then the midbrain. So midbrain start from here. So this is the midbrain. Below the hypothalamus and thalamus, the midbrain start. The tegmentum part, pituitary is hanging from the midbrain. Then behind is the tuber cinereum. If you remember the tegmentum part, below the tegmentum cinereum is the crus cerebri, and this is the anterior surface of the midbrain. The posterior surface consists of superior colliculus, inferior colliculus, and this is the pons. The pons start from this part. So above the pons is the midbrain, and above the superior colliculus there is a third eye. What is the name of third eye? Epiphysis cerebri, or also called pineal gland. So it has got three names: pineal gland, epiphysis cerebri, and the third eye. So this is the lateral view, and inside there is a cerebral aqueduct, the cavity of the midbrain. This is the fourth ventricle, the pons, and below is the medulla. This is the floor and floor. So it has got two columns. The upper column, they have got the nuclei which are called habenular nuclei. In the stalk of the pineal gland, there are nuclei which are called habenular nuclei. This is also concerned with the limbic system. So midbrain, then amygdaloid nucleus. The amygdaloid nucleus lies at the anterior end of the it's a small structure made up of the gray matter. Its shape is like the almond. Because of the almond shape, it is called amygdaloid. Amygdaloid word means almond shape. And where it is lying? At the anterior end of the inferior horn of the lateral ventricle, between the roof and the floor. And here ends the tail of caudate nucleus, if you remember the basal ganglia. So tail of the caudate nucleus ends at the amygdaloid nucleus. And this amygdaloid nucleus is also connected with the basal ganglia, is a part of basal ganglia, but also connected to the limbic system because of its afferent and efferent fibers. So it's efferent fibers of the amygdaloid nucleus which is concerned with the emotional behavior and sexual behavior of the human being is depending upon the amygdaloid nucleus. Because the stimulation of this causes the increase in the appetite and hypersexuality also. So these are the functions of the what is called the amygdala nucleus. From its posterior part, the axons they start, and these axons they go to the habenular nucleus, and from habenular they go to the cingulum, and from cingulum these fibers they come and they end into the septal areas. From septal area they go to the anterior nucleus of the thalamus, and also go to the anterior part of the hypothalamus as well as. So this is the various connections of the amygdaloid nucleus to the cingulum, to the habenular nucleus of the pineal gland, plus also the septal area of the cortical areas also. So these are the concerned areas about this. Then stria terminalis. So these stria terminalis, they are the fibers which are starting from the habenular nucleus and it is going into the cingulum and they are coming back. From here also, from cingulum or the other parts, the medial part is the stria medullaris also. So they go from the medullaris thalami, they again go to the habenular nucleus. So these are the stria terminalis and stria medullaris thalami. They are also the fibers from them. Then a very last part is called a circuit is formed here, is called the Papez circuit. So Papez circuit is the interconnection of the hypothalamus with the other cortical areas. They are all interconnected. So the Papez circuit, the person who has discovered, the scientist name is Papez. So it is from the hippocampus. The fibers they start from the hippocampus, and from the hippocampus these fibers they go upward through the gyrus fasciolaris. Then they go to the indusium griseum, and in the indusium griseum there are present medial and lateral longitudinal stria. They are embedded in the substance of the indusium griseum, lateral and the medial longitudinal stria. They are made up of the white matter. So these white matters, then they go anteriorly and they attach to the septal area. And from the septal area, these fibers they go to the they go to the hippocampus. So they are starting from the hippocampus, and after coming through this, they are again going into the hippocampus. So this whole circuit which is formed is a ring-shaped structure. So this ring is called the Papez circuit, or what is called the rim-like. So a rim is formed from the hippocampus, gyrus fasciolaris, and the indusium griseum with the lateral and the medial longitudinal stria, the septal areas, and from the septal area, the fibers they also goes to the midbrain function. So midbrain's reticular formation they are concerned. So it is concerned with the visceral behavior, the food, how much food we have to take. So this all depend upon the visceral area. So this is how we do the functions and the correlations of the what is called the limbic system. Thank you.